Hi everyone, come check us out on The Experience this Monday, August 8th at 6 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have new CCAs that just came in, more signed books, our classic version covers, CGCs, and so much more. Maybe even a giveaway, but you gotta tune in to check out. So Rex will be here with John and Robbie. I might pop in if I feel like it, but for the most part, we'll all be here. Remember, Monday, August 8th, 6 p.m. Don't miss it.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I am Rockin Robbie. It's Friday. It's around lunchtime. It means it's time for the Rex and Robbie show, and you can't have the Rex and Robbie show without Rex. What is up, Rex?
What's going on, Robbie? Hopefully we don't give people indigestion as they're chewing their lunch. They're watching us.
Exactly, right? So this is the Friday show where we talk about whatever we want to talk about. Usually there is some big news to talk about. The biggest news this week is that the Batgirl movie has been canceled. We're getting all these kind of rumblings about the future of the DCEU. Now, me and Rex had already talked last week about doing today's show on the future of the DCEU, and then this drops. It's just perfect. But of course, we want to know what you have to think. Let us know in the comments down below or right now in the live chat. That will allow you to be entered into winning the contest that we'll announce on Monday's show over at The Experience. You saw Amy talking about it a little bit. Join us every Monday night there. Link in the description below. Rex, what'd you think when you first heard this news?
Robbie, I think it was so funny. What was it, last Monday? Or it was the Monday before? We were just talking about it. We actually touched on it a little bit on Wednesday with Alec over at AR Comics. And then all this news drops. And it's like, are you kidding me? And you said something very funny before we started the show. You're like, this stuff writes itself. It really does. I mean, I'm looking at this train wreck going, what are they doing? You know, and we just mentioned it, the new CEO of the Warner Discovery merged new corporation.
David Zaslav or something like that.
Zaslav, right. When news came out that they were going to merge, and I was saying this, I did not foresee that the CEO of Discovery was going to become the CEO of this new merged company. It doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me, if you know what I'm saying. It's like Discovery, known for reality shows, is going to now oversee the transition or the writing of the ship of something that is completely fantasy based.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like he would have a whole lot of experience in this. That's what I'm thinking. All right. I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't know the guy's bio or history, and you know, maybe I'm completely off, and I will be totally honest, full disclosure, I did not read, you know, his bio on Wikipedia or whatever. I know he's been at Discovery a long time. I mean, that's about it. We got TMX in the house, Old Cheese, Ken Schneider, and Raul. What's going on, guys? Thanks for joining us. For your lunch hour, I hope. I got to tell you, you know, we started this conversation because I guess it started with the MCU and direction they were kind of taking, and how the last few releases, like I just read, I think yesterday, Thor: Love and Thunder has got the lowest Rotten Tomatoes score of any Thor movie.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Interesting, but I mean, clearly the
dark world exists, Rex. That's all I'm going to say, right?
All right. I'm not making a comment because I have not seen the movie, not even now, but I'm not going to make a comment on whether it's good or bad. But I think one thing that's pretty clear is that the easy kind of path that the MCU had right up until Endgame has shifted. Okay, you know, things are coming out, reviews are, you know, even from the fans, it's you know, back and forth. There's definitely some disagreement about it, but Raul, you're in India. Okay, yeah, I guess it is dinner time. So irregardless, as I said earlier, I hope we don't give anybody indigestion, but you know, you've been forewarned. But we're still talking about the MCU. Even the bad ones, we're talking about it. I mean, you know, how many times, you know, granted, Morbius is a different beast in and of itself, but you know, Doctor Strange, everything, Black Widow, going as far back as that, it hasn't been that kind of home run, that slam dunk that Endgame kind of, and all the movies leading up to Endgame.
Well, they did reignite excitement and passion with the big drop of announcements at San Diego. They got D23 coming up. I think Warner Brothers knows that, like, they're still playing catch up. DC has still been playing catch up this whole time, right? So even though a lot of, like we were talking about, it was almost perfectly timed along with San Diego Comic-Con that, like, there's this disinterest starting to swell in the future of the MCU, and then they drop Kang Dynasty, Secret Wars, Fantastic Four, and then there's going to be even more announcements. So like, I feel like they've strengthened the resolve of their fan base, whereas DC, who knows, right?
Dude, it is such a hot mess, and I realized it was a hot mess before this merger happened, right? So again, I think you bring up a good point. Is regardless of what we think of the direction MCU is taking, obviously not every movie is a slam dunk. Everybody's super excited about. We're watching it, we're talking about it. Okay, even the bad ones. Actually, in a lot of the instances, we're talking about the bad ones more than we're talking about the good ones, right? So whether it's a streaming series or it's a movie, whatever, it is still in the universe of attracting our attention. Okay, figure drawing, Miss Marvel, yes. So they have their hits, the good ones, and then they have their mediocre ones, and then we talk about it, whatever. And even if we disagree with, say, the way they're linking it together, we're still talking about it. But the problem with DC is that they're just, it's just a kind of a hot, a complete mess, a train wreck, and they can't seem to get out of their own way. And I understand what they're trying to do here. They're trying to say, okay, we have this incredible intellectual property, and clearly we're not maximizing its potential. We're watching the MCU, and we're watching all the things they're doing, and we don't seem to be going in that direction. And I'm not blaming this new executive staff on, Suicide Squad, let's make two, Zack Snyder versus Josh Whedon. These are things kind of just sort of happen. I mean, in a sense, they should have foreseen some of this, and this is what happens when you lack a cohesive plan, like Kevin Feige's 10-year plan on how things should work. So clearly that's not their fault, and they're trying to right the ship. But are the right guys making these decisions? That's my problem. Is that at MCU you feel like, agree or disagree, just like we are with comics, you feel like these guys have an understanding of what the universe should be, what the fans are kind of looking for. Sometimes they miss the mark, but they understand the needs. Right now, it kind of feels like at DC, you got a bunch of executives who may never have cracked a comic book in their lives, maybe saw a handful of these movies, making these decisions on how to right the ship. That's like going to a podiatrist because you have a toothache. These are the wrong guys trying to right this ship. The decisions they've made, they have a little bit of leeway because the murder just happened, but decisions they've made in the last few weeks, especially this week, it boggles the mind. I mean, I agree. Now the story is that Batgirl did not test well. Okay, fair enough. Okay, I mean, that happens. But I think everybody has to remember, it was made specifically to be released on HBO Max. It was never meant to be released in the theaters. Now, the fact that they've changed direction, says, well, we want it all to be released in theaters. Okay. But then you decide, beyond the fact that you decide to cancel, just completely shelve the movie after blowing $90 million on it and take your tax write-off, whatever the case may be. What does that do, again, to your universe? I mean, you look, they've had one success, and that's Peacemaker. That's it.
Yeah.
Everything else has been just a hot mess. The second Suicide Squad, I enjoyed it. I mean, but it really looks bad when forget that one. We're going to make another one. Okay. They keep doing this. The Batfleck, the Affleck Batman thing. All right. You cancel a movie where everybody's excited to see the cameo by Michael Keaton, and then you're sticking with the Flash. I promote that. You're sticking with the Flash.
Yeah. I think there's more to it, I think, than just like I think DC has been kind of running around doing crazy, terrible, poor decisions, having lack of a cohesive vision. I think them canceling Batgirl is a signal that they are finally going forward with a cohesive vision. Now, there's much more to it, but I looked up David Zaslav. He started working at NBC in 1989. He was president of cable and domestic TV and new media distribution. There, he oversaw content distribution to all forms of TV and negotiated for cable and satellite carriage of NBC Universal Networks and forged media partnerships. So he's got some background, right? Obviously, probably not an avid comic book fan. I think anybody on that executive level doesn't have time to read comics. You know what I'm saying? But
Well, go ahead.
what I'm hearing is that Batgirl was initially supposed to come out after the Flash movie, right? So we think about that. The whole purpose of the Flash movie, apparently the third act of the Flash movie, undid the Snyderverse. They did their version of Flashpoint, and then they were going to reset the universe and start fresh. And Batgirl was meant to reflect the post-Flashpoint DCEU, wiping out the Snyderverse, right? Therefore, there would be no Ben Affleck Batman. It would be Michael Keaton Batman, who is now aged up, and Batgirl is going to take over the prominent role that Batman would have. And then the Supergirl, there was a Supergirl movie announced, and it was the Supergirl that's appearing in the Flash movie. Allegedly, they were doing the same thing with that. So they wanted to have a new post-Flashpoint DCEU, keep some of the things that worked, like Jason Momoa, Gal Gadot, keep some of these things, right? But then kind of center and everything, cornerstone everything with Batgirl and Supergirl. So they apparently now, this dude Zaslav doesn't want to do that. He wants a Kevin Feige type approach. And so what we're hearing now, and Batgirl being canceled, it's not the only one, right? So this isn't just a targeted attack on Batgirl. They have canceled that Scooby-Doo animated special movie coming out or something. There's other shows. They started pulling things off. We just got the announcement that HBO Max is going to combine with Disney Plus. We kind of knew that was going to happen. So I think it's also just a reformatting of how they're doing their streaming content, which is probably going to be geared more towards Discovery type shows, right? And DC, and another thing that's happened is DC Comics on their website and other places like social medias this week, they changed it to just DC.com and stuff like that, right? So I think, and what I'm hearing is that they're redoing the ending of the Flash movie to keep the Snyderverse intact. Michael Keaton was going to be a Batman cameo in the Aquaman movie. That's no longer going to be the case. That's why they brought in Ben Affleck last week when they were talking about him coming in to do some reshoots. So the idea is to keep the Snyderverse intact, not necessarily get Snyder to do a new Justice League movie, but to be like, we've had a string of kind of successes with things like Wonder Woman, Shazam, Black Adam, hopefully for them, Aquaman. Some of these things have worked. The James Gunn stuff with Peacemaker, even that Suicide Squad movie worked for them. So they're kind of like, let's focus on building from what works. And apparently this new Flash movie, and the reason why they're really sticking with it is because $200 million is way crazier to swallow than 90. But apparently they're redoing the ending of that movie to kind of set up this new 10-year plan that they apparently have. That's what I'm hearing.
See, here's the. I understand what you're saying, and I didn't want to. I did want to. I think somebody had. Who was it? I think it was Circumstance who said that the movies are not made to gear towards a comic book audience, and I agree with that. Okay, in essence, but the problem is this: is that now you have these MCU followers that watch the movies but have never actually cracked a comic book. So you've developed this whole other fan base. So they know the characters, they just don't know them from the comics. They only know them from the movies. So they have a very strong reaction as well. So it's kind of weird how it's developed. But I think that the problem that DC is faced with right now is they're really just doing the same thing, just in a different way. Okay? At some point, it's like, okay, so you're saying you want to reboot. We heard about this. But yet you still released the new Batman movie, which I'm not sure how you're going to fit that into the DC universe, right? So,
well, I think they think that the Batman brand is strong enough to stand on its own, and that's why they're doing that, right? And
that's the problem, though. You can't. You see that's the problem they're faced with, and this is what they've continuously done year after year after year. Okay, and I agree with the idea that you need a Kevin Feige kind of summit and then a 10-year plan to kind of keep it cohesive. But at the same time, you either do a hard restart and just say, okay, ignore everything that's happened up to this point. We're going to keep Aquaman. We're going to keep Wonder Woman. All right. And we're going to reset from that point. That's going to be our foundation in the same way that Iron Man became the foundation for the entire MCU. And certainly you wouldn't think that the Flash would be that, or not the Flash, but that Iron Man would be that point, but right now you have an opportunity to do that. You have two elements that work, okay, and that's obviously Wonder Woman and Aquaman. All right, so then you take those two and you build out from there, somehow incorporating one of your other successes, which is obviously Peacemaker, okay, which shouldn't be that hard to do. You know, okay, there are plenty of talented writers who can write you out of that problem. But trying to fix everything else and cancel things that people have been waiting to see, that's a real bad idea, okay? Because you've already been doing this, and it hasn't worked, okay? You have two versions of Justice League, okay? You remade Suicide Squad. You've done all these things to try and reboot in kind of it's almost like jumping out of the car while it's moving. And you've done this multiple times, and it doesn't work, and you're trying to do it again, but you're saying, but this time we have a better plan. And my other concern is this guy, you know, you read off his bio a little bit, Zaslav or whatever. Content back in the 1980s is very different. Even in the last 5 to 10 years, things are shifting dramatically. Okay, and one of the things that I take exception with, one of the few articles I read, is that his plan is to once again go back to the movie theater cinematic blockbuster release, trying to go back to pre-pandemic. That's gone, man. You know, and they're trying to point to Netflix. You know, well, Netflix. You know, look at what's happening to them. What's happening to them is there are less streamers. It's just Netflix's business model certainly losing all the IP when Disney Plus came on board, whatever. We've talked about this on your shows before. Their problem is the model of dropping an entire season at once. Okay, you and I have talked about that. Okay, we watch it, we binge it, we talk about it for about a week, maybe two, maybe a month, and then it's over. And then it's several, a year or two out before we get to the next season. And then they cancel stuff right after dropping it. Okay, they've been shooting themselves in the foot. I don't think there are less streamers. I just think there are less streamers that subscribe to Netflix now.
Yeah, but wanting to not produce movies solely for your streaming service and actually have them be like these big cinematic tentpoles and stuff, and everybody right now is salivating over Top Gun Maverick money. They're like, well, it can still be done in a theater, right? But you got to make something that is a theater experience, right? What's that? How is that different than what Marvel does? Marvel still puts all their big movies in the theater, right? Like, we're still going to have a Peacemaker show. James Gunn did confirm that that's still going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what's the difference? Like, to drop it in the theater and then 3 months later you drop it on streaming.
Wait, you just pointed out a major point. All right. So, James Gunn just confirmed there's going to be a Peacemaker movie. Peacemaker started as a streaming TV series.
No, a Peacemaker season 2. If I said movie, I misspoke. Yeah.
I thought you meant a movie. But yes, I heard that there was going to be a season 2. I thought that this was new information. But the point of fact is, whether it's streaming, I think the business model of going back to big blockbuster movies, yes, okay, Doctor Strange, and then 62 Lefty, what's going on, buddy? I'm with 62 Lefty. We know we have John, who's on our show every Monday and Wednesday with me. He's got the Regal VIP, see as many movies as you want until they go broke card. And then there are people like myself and obviously our buddy 62 Lefty. Hey, figure drawing and Perry Comics, what's going on? I'm not going to the movie theaters. It's going to be a very rare occasion that I walk in a movie theater. I can wait. All right, it's no big deal. I'll wait until it streams and I'll watch it then. So you've got two different and I've always been like that. Here's what's funny. It's not like this is something that just developed, it's the pandemic, I'm not going to movie theaters. It just kind of evolved that way. There was a period when my daughter was young, we'd go to the big theater to watch, a kid's show. And then that became less and less when we could watch it on TV or stream it, whatever. Now she's 22. The last thing she wants to do is see a movie with her old dad, obviously. But I was always like that. All the pandemic did for me is make it more convenient for me now. I wasn't punished for not going to the movie theater. Will there be people that will always go to the movie theaters for that movie theater experience? Sure, there will be. But that the day of thinking that you're going to force your entire audience to the movie theater just because it's a blockbuster, okay, or I want to watch it in IMAX, that's not going to happen. So to a certain extent, I believe that streaming and the movies are forever linked, and they're trying to push that out. So I believe that a good reason, or a not a good reason, but a valid reason in their minds as to why they wanted to shelf Batgirl is, well, we're not doing these made for streaming anymore. But what I'm saying is that you can have success there. You had success there with Peacemaker. Okay, it can work.
I think that's just their excuse, though, Rex. I think that they had terrible test screenings. I think that, the first thing I heard when this news hit out, the first thing that dropped was that test screenings called this movie irredeemable. And they don't mean like an adaptation of the Mark Waid book. They mean like not good, like not even. And so what are you going to do? Put more money into it to try to fix it, to try to solve it? Or are you just going to cut it? They took the tax write-off. There's this. And maybe people didn't like that direction. They didn't like one where they, I don't know. I don't know what to, it's crazy because
I would say, and Ken Schneider, listen, you don't have to agree with me. I realize, Amy, who's sometimes on air with us, she is a big movie theater fan. Okay.
I'm a big movie theater fan, of course.
Yeah. It's a common disagreement that we have. And that's okay. Listen, I get it. Some people want to see it, big comfy chairs in the movie theater, big screen, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not saying that I'm looking that everything should be streaming or direct to streaming. I'm okay with waiting. Okay. Eventually it shows up streaming and eventually I'm going to watch it. All right. But it's just the experience is different. But the model that used to exist where everybody was kind of forced to go to theaters, that was always slowly evolving. Okay. Because it went from a time where if you didn't see it in the theaters, you wouldn't see it at all. Okay. It'd be years and years and years before it made it somewhere where, or it might get re-released. Then streaming started to happen, and then things like HBO, eventually movies would end up on cable channels. So the behavior was slowly shifting. All the pandemic did was accelerate that behavior change. Okay. All right. And those streaming numbers were up. I don't believe streaming numbers are down. So using Netflix as an example, I think doesn't really work. Their streaming numbers, their subscriber numbers are down because of things that they're doing. It's got nothing to do with people like, pandemic's over, I'm going back to movie theaters. No. Yeah, even someone like Ken Schneider, who I'm sure, obviously, based on your comment, I understand that you're a movie theater guy. But it doesn't mean when you get home, you're not streaming. You're still streaming, I'm sure. Okay, just like the rest of us.
Yeah, so, I just think the streaming thing, Rex, is just an excuse they're using to try to be like, oh, no, it's not because we made a bad movie. Oh, it's not because we don't have faith in this product. I think it's just like, oh, this is the whole thing. It's because we don't want to focus in on just streaming movies and stuff. Like, streaming is still a big deal. I would love to see what Netflix's numbers look like during the Stranger Things, because everybody was on Stranger Things, and now Sandman's out today.
A lot of people kept the subscription because they were Stranger Things fans. But Brother John Comics, I think that's an interesting statement. So I believe completely and absolutely that Discovery Warner is leaking the information about the test screenings. I agree with Brother John. There's no verified whatever. Okay, information saying that it was. It's just interesting that once the directors and a lot of the crew and cast, were saying, we worked hard, blah, blah, blah. So then came they're doing it for a tax write-off type thing. Then all of a sudden leaks come out. No, it wasn't tax write-off. It was, the test screenings were awful. Okay. Again, I hate to keep bashing Morbius, but they didn't do any test screenings for Morbius. They didn't know. They didn't do any test screenings for Eternals. They didn't know. Okay. So to a certain extent, my belief is that you have these executives in charge who don't really understand their audience. And I don't think it's just comic book people. It's MCU, DC Universe, people that watch this genre of movie. And you don't really understand what they want. Okay. And again, coming from a company that focuses on reality shows, that's a totally different beast. You're going from reality shows to total fantasy. All right. It's a completely different audience. I don't watch reality shows. I really don't. Okay. I watched them when they were first popular, like Survivor and things like that. And then I stopped. Okay. It doesn't have any real interest in me. I know a lot of people watch it religiously. I have no interest in it. That's just me. I love sci-fi. I love obviously comic book movies or movies based on comic books, fantasy, that type of thing. Big Harry Potter fan, even Fantastic Beasts, the really crappy one, I watched it. That's the genre that I like. For me, it's entertainment. So when I'm not when I'm not working and I'm watching a movie, I want something that's completely outside of reality. That's my escape. I'm a different kind of audience than someone who likes to watch reality shows. So I think the problem is they're thinking, okay, we need to follow this Kevin Feige model. Look at all the money that they've made. So we need to do this, and this. But everything you've done up to this point has done more harm than good, because you're not looking at it from the viewpoint of the audience and what they want. People want to see Batgirl. You want to reset the universe. You can still do that and release Batgirl on streaming. Okay, I told you, you've already done it. You've done it so many times. You got the Ben Affleck Batman. Now you talk about Michael Keaton. Everybody's, yay, let's get Michael Keaton back, and then you wax that. Okay, then you have the new Batman that's completely, he's got a muscle car for the Batmobile. You release that. So it just this kind of talk or whatever just sounds like a bunch of people looking at spreadsheets and stuff and reports and analytics saying, oh no, we got to do this.
That could be the case, but this whole time over these last 10 years or so, all we hear is people going, DC needs a direction. They need a plan. They need to build it up. They need to stop being all over the place. So what seems to be becoming more and more clear to me is that Batgirl represented a direction for the DCEU that the new guy doesn't want. And so that I think is the number one reason why they're canceling that. I don't know what they're doing with this Flash movie, because Ezra Miller's a whole problem in and of itself, right?
I'll tell you straight up that $90 million is a lot of money. All right. But from my perspective, and I don't know if they're ever going to really admit this Flash Ezra Miller situation is a powder keg. And announcing that you're shelving Batgirl and then kind of promoting Flash, I think it's almost a death bell. Because here's the thing, if you release it, no matter how you work on the Flash, Grant Gustin, you should have hired him way back. Okay. All right. That was a completely, he is a fan favorite. People are clamoring, replace Ezra Miller, put Grant Gustin in there. I'm sure Grant's sitting at home laughing his butt off. Okay. No matter what you do right now with the Flash situation, you lose. You go on with the movie and you are going to be completely bashed. You took a movie with, or a movie, was supposed to be streaming with a woman of color, and you shelve it because you say it tested badly. Then you have the whole Ezra Miller situation, and you're saying, oh, I saw the Flash, I'm very excited about it. Okay. Trying to ignore all this other side stuff that's been going on, right?
Well, I don't think it has anything to do with any of that. I think it has to do with just being like, we want to just build on what we got. We don't want this new direction. We don't want the reboot. We don't want the post-Flashpoint reboot. We're going to change the ending of the Flash, release that, hope for the best, and we just hope and pray right now that Black Adam and Shazam and Aquaman are successful. I think that's what they're doing.
I don't think that the decision was made with that in mind. I'm saying from a PR perception problem, this is where they're at. So if they shelve the movie, then all the Flash fans are going to get on it. So it's a no-win situation right now for them. So you really got to take the situation with that's going to have the least harm. But figure drawing puts it right. So what does that mean for the upcoming is this Batman universe they just introduced going to disappear?
No, I think that
is the Joker movie going to disappear?
No, I think that they believe in the power of the brand of Batman and Joker over the DC.
But then again, you have the same problem though. You've got universes going all over the place. There's no direction. Ignore
I get
this.
That.
It doesn't apply to the DC universe. Okay, this is a different Batman. The Ben Affleck Batman is the DC universe Batman. Okay, this Batman is a standalone. You see, again, you haven't really solved anything. You say you want to go in this direction. Yeah, you see. So why not release Batgirl? That's not the direction we wanted to move it. Yet you're moving in this direction with Batman. Confused. Okay. And fans want to see Michael Keaton reprise his role. You wax that.
But that's still going to happen in Flash. That's still happening in Flash.
But we were expecting to see him in Batgirl. So
man, I have not. I mean, I saw a comment when we first started, Rex. Somebody commented, yes. I didn't know a single person who was excited about a Batgirl movie. There's more talk about the cancellation than there was for the actual movie. I 100%. Nobody was telling me.
If they bring it
Nobody
back,
was excited for this movie.
if they bring it back, the next week on your show, I'm going to say they're marketing geniuses. Okay, it's like the new Coke. All right, everybody hated the new Coke. Okay, but now you like the classic Coke. We were clamoring for classic Coke after new Coke came out, right? So maybe it's some sort of Coke marketing plan. If it is, then I will be on your show, and hat in hand, and I will say they are brilliant. They brought attention to something. I'm not saying that there were a mass of fans clamoring to see Batgirl. All right, but what I believe is that you couldn't have really hurt the situation you're in at this point by releasing it, because the optics of all of this is not good for you. It now looks like a tax write-off. Okay, and now you're trying to say, well, test it really, really bad. Like Warner and Discovery haven't done really, really bad shows that they've released. Okay, and you do it in a timing and continue to support Flash. The optics of this is horrible. They've made every bad decision to make themselves look bad, in my opinion, at every turn here. Okay, and again, they inherited a lot of this situation. But another problem is, and I agree with this, they do need a Kevin Feige to take control, kind of, bring this all together. Okay, the whole Josh Whedon, Zack Snyder thing was just a joke. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Thank you. Life is good.
Thank you very much. It didn't win anybody over. It looks like you've got a disorganized house. And I'm not sure anything that they're doing right now is going to make anything better. And it seems like the long-term intent is to actually wax HBO Max as well, which would be a move on their part.
That's apparently merging into Disney Plus, and we'll see how that all shakes out. But as far as the movies, I'm cool with a cohesive vision. I understand what you're saying about the Batman and the Joker movie. That's puzzling. Batman could be easily explained to be like, this is the Ben Affleck Batman in his early days. Okay, I would buy that. You know what I'm saying? I get that. The Joker movie is so obviously on its own. I think that's a whole other beast, and people see that and understand it. I don't know why they're doing a second one of those.
Well, that's a good point. Okay.
That's another thing I've heard is that they're apparently this Ta-Nehisi Coates Superman movie, that's kind of up in the air right now. Apparently they're thinking about that pretty hard too. So I don't know. How long do we want to preserve this Snyderverse, if you want to call it that? Because I would love to get Henry Cavill to come back to do Superman a few more times. But how much longer could we possibly have of Cavill and Affleck being, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yep.
I don't know.
Yep.
It's weird.
No, I totally agree with that. It just seems like there is no one clear vision, and there never has been. People pulling in different directions. You look at Batman versus Superman. You look at all those movies. The amount of failures that they've had with Superman is unbelievable through the years. After Christopher Reeves, they've never been able to successfully make it work. Okay, it has just been horrendous. And you're talking about a character that is iconic in American pop culture, if you will. And you haven't been able to make that work. And you weren't able to make Justice League work, even though you had, I think, strong support and popularity of both the Wonder Woman and Aquaman characters. But they can't, it seems like every 3 to 4 years, somebody has a different vision or a different view or want to move in a different direction. And I don't see the cancellation of Batgirl and keeping Flash running is going to help them. I think that's going to be a big punch in the mouth. I think that, and the reason I said that about Batgirl is, I think that the easiest way to get out of this, if you're going to hold on to Flash, is you let Batgirl run on HBO Max. Just let it run, okay? Because you're going to get less criticism. Now you're going to get attacked for that, and now no matter which direction you take on Flash, you're going to get attacked for that as well. You just keep feeding into the controversy that keeps going on, and I just think that this is it's something when Kevin Feige is calling reaching out to the directors of Batgirl, complimenting them and wishing them well and congratulating the one director on his marriage, and saying, hope to see you soon. That if that's not a backhanded slap from Kevin Feige to the DC execs, I don't know what is.
Well, then what's his name was also throwing shade. Simu Lee, is that the name of the guy that plays Shang-Chi? Yeah, he was throwing shade too. He said that, sorry guys, even though we'd already mostly filmed the Shang-Chi Christmas special, we're not going to be releasing it or something like that. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah,
but,
that was
I mean,
funny.
It's showing that there's obviously problems. And here's the thing, man. I think now they're finally being like, you know what, man, we do got a problem. What can we do to fix it? I don't know, man. This whole Batgirl thing, it's crazy because now more people will want to see this movie. It's kind of like that Wonder Woman pilot with Adrian Palicki. Like now we really want to see it because we never got to, right? So like, I don't know. But at the same time, I always wanted to see that Justice League pilot movie that they did in the 90s. And when I finally got a bootleg copy of it to watch, I was like, I see why they didn't do this. So, you never know, man. It could be.
It could be. I mean, again, to me, it was not smart. I think that you're not doing anything to help yourselves here. It seems even more in disarray than it did before, and it was, it seemed to be in pretty big disarray. Not trying to do anything with Peacemaker beyond making a second season to try to link the popularity there is baffling. Okay, it's strange because obviously you see how that can work for you. Suicide Squad remake, okay, again, and then you get a Peacemaker series out of that. That was very popular. I love
Peacemaker series is the best thing that this DCEU has ever produced. I think 100%. I love that show so much. So
I do too.
Maybe they need to let James Gunn like have a stab at a couple more of these movies. Maybe James Gunn should like pitch a Superman movie or something.
I think James Gunn reached out to directors as well. I think I read an article about that.
Well, it's never cool to see somebody's work like this kind of get shelved or whatever. The good thing is they all got paid. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not like they all got paid. I get it. Could have been a big break for Leslie Grace, but that sucks to see people's work not actually come out and be released. But at the same time, who knows? Maybe it is for the best. I don't know. Look, we shall see. What's up, man?
We'll see how that works. I'm hopeful. You got the right actors for it, I think. So it should be, Aquaman. You've got the right people in place. That really is the foundation they should have been building off of. Bringing Affleck back as Batman. I don't know. I don't see how that. You got to make a decision there one way or the other. Batman can't be in. He can't not be in that universe. So are we accepting that now we've got two Batmans? That okay, this is the Batman DC universe. This is the Batman standalone. That's not going to confuse anybody. I just don't feel like there's any kind of. I just feel like there's. I hate to say it, a bunch of accountants looking at spreadsheets, making decisions about this without taking into account what the fans want, what makes sense, utilizing what, tons of talented writers out there that could fix this problem for you. Yeah. You're making this from, a spreadsheet decisions from a spreadsheet first.
Well, all right. Well, this has been a lively conversation, and we're just going to wrap it up here, right? So it seems in general, Rex thinks the Batgirl cancellation and everything surrounding it comes across very badly and doesn't seem very beneficial, right? I think it's the signs of a new day dawning. I don't know. Hopefully, we'll see what happens. But we're curious to know what you think. Let us know in the comments down below. That will enter you to win a contest. We'll announce the winner of that contest on Monday night's show at The Experience. Great channel. Great shows. I'm on there every Monday night with Rex and John and the fellas from Dynamic Forces. AR's on there on Wednesday. Lots of other great shows. Nick's on there tonight. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the show, bro?
Nick will be on our YouTube channel, The Experience, from 7 to 8 Eastern Time with original art. He's going to have some great original art. Here's some of the stuff that's going to be on. There's also going to be cover sketch art, commission cover sketch art by Ken Hazer. Great show. Even if you are not an actual collector of original art, it's a great show to watch just to see the original storyboards that everything's coming from, the comic boards. And Nick always has an interesting story that, behind a lot of this stuff is from his personal collection that he's putting out there. So always a real cool story that goes along with it. But yeah, so tune in tonight, 7 to 8 Eastern Time on The Experience.
Nice. All right. We appreciate everybody for watching. Rex, thanks for being here. And we'll see you guys on Monday, and we'll see you guys next week.